Hi again, buddies. I am Jacaro Toro, and on this channel I talk about Australian Aboriginal languages, predominantly languages belonging to the big Pama-Nyungan language family. And this video is part of a series where I describe the complex verbs found in verb classifying languages in the north and northwest of Australia. So in this video I'd like to complicate what I said in the previous video about Ngarla complex verbs a little bit further. Yes, so what I said in the previous video is that here in this position, in the first position of the complex verb, we find either uninflecting verbs, which only occur here, they are not used anywhere else in the language, or adverbs. And by and large that is true. Most of the units we find here are uninflecting verbs, and there are also some adverbs used here. But it so happens that in Ngarla a smaller number of nouns also occur in this position. Words that are clearly nouns are used as nouns in other contexts. And I have a few examples of this here. And now that I think about it, perhaps we should start with the sentences where these words are used as nouns and not with the sentences where they are used as verbs. That's not the way I wrote it on the board, but let's do that. So we start here. Nyai Jilya, Yini Jimmy. Nyai, the demonstrative for something that is close by. Jilya, child. Name, Jimmy. And this is a case of inalienable possession. See my videos about that. So what this means is this child's name is Jimmy. Yes, so name. And when you incorporate yini into this complex verb, the verb means to name. That is to say, to give name, a name to someone. So we have yini mari ngaja. Ngaja, first person singular ergative. Nyai nganonga yogoro. Literally, this my dog. Karodo. So what this means is I name this dog of mine Karodo. Karodo, which by the way means mouse. Yes. Second example down here includes the word wanga. Wanga, which means language, like here. It means speech, and it has other related meanings as well, such as message. So here we have palagani Jilya karango. So palagani, the demonstrative for something that is mid-distant. Jilya karango, child plural. Mrano ngarimaraya, where this is actually also a noun. I will get back to that. But here in the complex verb we have the optative mood and the third person plural suffix. Wangara, ngarara. So what this means is those children ought to learn the Ngarla language. Wangara and ngarara, both in the dative. And now looking here at this sentence, where wanga is incorporated into the complex verb, we have ngaya, first person singular nominative. Para wangakarian nganongara kunjadara. So wangakarian means is talking. And those three words here together make up the object of this clause. So this means I am talking to my woman. Yes, and I said that merano is also a noun. Merano, used as a noun, means knowledge. So literally then, this means that those children ought to acquire knowledge about the Ngarla language. Merano occurs in a common phrase, this one, Meda merano, which means I don't know. Literally, this is no knowledge. So, the question is, how should we analyze these instances where, in fact, a known noun turns up in the complex verb? Are these instances of verbalization where the noun is turned into a verb by being incorporated into the complex verb in this way? That is one way to analyze it. And in this context, it might be interesting to ask, what is the situation like in Ngarla's neighboring languages to the south? They have not been described previously in terms of verb classification. The linguists that have studied them have not seen verb classification in those languages. In short, they have wanted to describe verbalization instead, nouns being turned into verbs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to erase this and write something else here, and we'll see what we find. So, be right back. Yes, so what I've done now is that I've written down information from Wardick's Injibandi grammar from 1982. And I've also looked at Alan Dench's description of Mardodonera. Injibandi was spoken south of Ngarla, traditionally in the inland. Not directly south. Directly south was Nyamal, and south of that was Injibandi. And Mardodonera was spoken west of Injibandi on the coast. So what we find here in Wardick's Injibandi grammar is interesting. He lists no less than 18 different verbalizers that are used in the language. And a number of these so-called verbalizers really seem to be verb class markers. If we look at what we have here, for example, contains a built-in locative component. It means shoot out, expel. Employed with nouns that describe physical activities, used for psychological states. And I seem to have misspelled psychological, but I think we will survive that. So these sound like verb clauses. And in fact, this one is identical to the Ngarla ku category, because a number of verbs in the ku category have a built-in locative component. And this corresponds to the Ngarla ji category. In other cases, as with those verbalizers here at the bottom, it's harder to be sure. Are these verb class markers or not? The use of these seems to be governed, in fact, by what sound comes before. So, occurs with a retroflex consonant, ra. Ra occurs with r. And jari, employed with nouns ending in other consonants than r. So I would say it's a bit unclear from Wardik's grammar what exactly is going on in Injibandi. Someone should sit down and study all the available Injibandi material and well, do a new analysis to see what we can come up with. Yes, because this is not entirely clear. And in Wardik's defense, perhaps I should say that verb classification in Australian languages hadn't really been thought of at that point when he wrote his grammar, or at least not described clearly. Yes, and I also looked at Mardudunera, as I said. For the Mardudunera language, Alan Dench describes 9 verbalizers, so half the number that we find in Injibandi. It is interesting to note, though, that Injibandi and Mardudunera have 3 of these in common. So they have ma, which they of course share with Ngarla. And the question is it a verb class marker or not in Injibandi and Mardudunera? They share kari, which is employed in both languages with nouns that describe physical activities, and they share muli, which is used in the same function in both languages as well. So what does this mean? Well, it's hard to say at present. Perhaps Mardudunera has a sort of a reduced verb classifying system. Or perhaps both of these languages have ended up somewhere in between a prototypical verb classifying system and a system where you verbalize nouns. This needs to be studied further. Before I had my article in the Australian Journal of Linguistics about Ngarla published, verb classification in languages in the Pilbara region had never been described. So now we know that Ngarla is a verb classifying language. And the question is, are there more such languages in the Pilbara region? Yes, this needs to be studied further, and this is all for today. So, see you later.